Hey, welcome to This Week in Pharmacy. It's June 21st, Summer Solstice. Before we get started, my name is Todd Uri, host of This Week in Pharmacy, founder of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I tell you what, I am blessed by you, the listener. I'm blessed by our pharmacists, by our technicians, by people in our profession who are truly in this to improve pharmacy care. It's become their life mission and journey to do different things. I just met up with several new pharmacists this week who are doing research with rare diseases in autoimmune disease. We had an opportunity to partner with iHeartMedia to push out a very specific podcast episode about a girl named Morgan who is experiencing a rare disease. I'm not going to go into it, but I want you to go listen to this. It's an episode that was published this week. I want you to listen to Morgan's story. I want you to come at this from a complete patient experience, a parent's perspective about what someone would go through when they find out that they have a very complex disease that they'll live with for the rest of their lives, and how to handle that. Summer solstice is here. Can you believe it? I cannot tell you how fast 2024 seems to be going, and summer's my favorite month of the year, and I don't want to see it go. However, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see where the equator hits right now, why it's called the summer solstice, what that means, the longest day of the year occurring when the Earth's poles tilted towards the sun at the most extreme angle. And due to that Earth's tilt, this happens twice a year. In the northern hemisphere, the summer solstice this year fell on June 20th, I think at 4:50 p.m. Eastern time. It was at its most tilted level to give us the longest day of the year. And it's been holidays throughout the world in celebration. We got notification through our administrative company that helps us with human resources and benefits and some strategies that they have a special blog coming out on this. Is there effects on patients? I mean, I know the world of holistic medicine and leaning towards celestial bodies and full moons per se. Do people really act differently in pharmacy during full moons? Do you ever notice that as a pharmacist in pharmacies? So we have a big show today. I want to just say thank you to organizations like RxMile. I'm not sure if you've heard about these guys, but they're a technology company that is a new sponsor of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. They are really dedicated to helping independent community pharmacies use logistics technology to better plan deliveries, make delivery to homes, to schools, to administrations, to universities, whatever the arrangement is, making that easier, coupling together the savings, just like you would get food delivered by an Uber, right? Uber Health and Uber Food is actually extensions of delivery models. However, RxMile is really tapped in specifically to medication delivery. The integrations to pharmacy management systems like Pioneer, which is one of the largest pharmacy software systems used by our independent community pharmacies. This courier network that they're building is absolutely amazing. They have a really heavy South Florida presence. Canole and his team are, once again, I started today's This Week in Pharmacy out by commending you, listeners, and commending those people who are truly innovating and trying to do all they can for support of pharmacists, for support of pharmacy in all sectors, not just community. But a shout out to RxMile. I want you to take a look at this. Go to rxmile.com. Take a look at what they're doing to improve access to medications and making it easier for people, especially our chronic disease sufferers, to get their medication. Hey, I am headed this weekend to Idea Share, McKesson Idea Share. It's going to be in New Orleans. It's going to be starting on Sunday, then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I think. And then we get home Wednesday night or Thursday. It's going to be a long week. It's going to be an exciting week. I cannot wait to meet up with my friends, our sponsors, friends of community pharmacies owned by independent community pharmacies, IPC, the Independent Pharmacy Cooperative. We're going to be in booth 903. If you're in New Orleans, please come see us. If you're not, and you want to listen into some amazing people in pharmacy, really doing some great things, please listen to the post show. It'll be a 3-part post show. Once again, thank you. Shout out to Independent Pharmacy Cooperative, IPC, for hosting us and for sponsoring us, and also the Waypoint team, the Waypoint company, the advisors to community pharmacies are also going to be there. I cannot wait to meet up with Matt Coakley. You probably heard him talking on This Week in Pharmacy, or it might have been a previous week, as a preface to what they're doing in community pharmacy. But a shout out to everyone traveling. Please have a safe travel, relax, make sure you stay hydrated, and network with each other. That's my favorite part of these events is talking to people in the industry. All right, today's episode, This Week in Pharmacy, we are featuring a special episode with Dr. Lorneka Joseph. She is a powerhouse. She's joy. She's pure joy. I also want to give a shout out to Dr. Behnaz Sarami. I got to meet her after knowing her for 5-6 years. I can't remember. She's a host on Precision Health and PGX Pharmacists, which used to be PGX for Pharmacists podcast. And she's been with me. She's a ride or die type of friend, advisor. She protects, her and Becky Winslow literally protect our network from organizations and things that are happening in pharmacogenomics that may be questionable, that might be, there's a lot of organizations who may just want to make money on something like pharmacogenomics. And rather than really putting the science first, they really try to back in quick testing and making it more about, making money. Not that that's not important. Of course it is. But the reason why I want to shout out to Behnaz is she is a scientist. Her biology background, she's an explorer. She loves to dig into the data. She supports her sales reps with her organization to assure that they're presenting good information, evidence-based information, the latest information. Reach out to Behnaz, Behnaz, Behnaz Sarami, PharmD. Reach out to her on LinkedIn and tell her that the RX Podfather sent you. Todd Urey, that's me. Hey, listen, interesting article that I want to preface. A shout out to Dr. Danielle Plummer, who's the host of Maternal RX. Guess what? There was an article this week, and it was from Pharmacy Times, and it was titled Expert Maternal Health Disparities, Role of Pharmacists in Improving Outcomes. Maternal health. Listen, we know Dr. Jenna Quinn is out there just setting the whole country on fire with her reputation in pediatrics. She is a pediatric-focused pharmacist. She's gone real deep rather than real wide. There's different kinds of pharmacies, different kind of techniques, but a shout out to Pharmacy Times and this article that was an interview with Rebecca Snead, pharmacist and senior director at the Strategic Initiatives in Long-Term Care from the National Community Pharmacists Association, the NCPA. So I want you to take a read of this article. I want you to listen to what Rebecca Snead has to share around maternal health, but then go to Pharmacy Podcast Network, go to your podcast player, your favorite directory, and I want you to look up Maternal RX, which is all one word, or go to Google, put in Maternal RX, and then Danielle, spelled just like Danielle, Plummer, Plummer. But I want you to connect with Danielle on LinkedIn and listen to some of her shows about what women go through, women health and the problems getting pregnant, through pregnancy, post-pregnancy. So much going on there. I certainly don't understand. Danielle and her team does. Her guests are really intricate. They dive deep into issues. An episode on February 23rd of this year was with Dr. Jenna Quinn. And that's a really cool mashup. That's the power of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. A shout out to our hosts. It's the networking. It's really not about podcasting, even though that's what we use. Obviously, that's what we started with way back in 2009. But it's the networking. When you're listening to these podcasts and you hear something that you either have interest in, you want to explore, you want to become a specialist, or you have a patient case that is involving something specific to kids or rare disease or pregnancy or whatever it is. The Pharmacy Podcast Network wants to give you content every single month about that. And guess what? We don't have it all. That's how we're going to keep growing. If you have ideas, if you have podcast series ideas, permanent ideas, guest host ideas coming on This Week in Pharmacy, I want this to be your platform, just like a Facebook would be for the world, the Pharmacy Podcast Network, from an audio learning perspective and social media sharing. It's really all about you. And I take all my guidance, 100% of my guidance from pharmacists on every subject that we cover. All right. Lastly, lots of closures throughout the nation. This is very scary. President of the Pennsylvania Pharmacist Association, Dr. Chris Antipas, with Estes Pharmacy, community pharmacy in Pittsburgh, was featured in a local article for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette about pharmacy closures and the impact on communities. This is happening all over the nation. What I'm sharing with you, if you're watching on YouTube, Rite Aid closes more pharmacies in Ohio and Michigan, and it goes down through an announcement this week about the updates. The stores are among 200 of the company's 2,000 stores that it said it would close. That ripple effect of Rite Aid going through restructuring through, I believe, Chapter 13 or Chapter 11, a whole restructuring of their organization to strengthen and to kind of go down as small as possible in chosen areas, right? That is going to have a crazy impact on communities throughout the nation. And guess what else? It's going to cause layoffs of pharmacists and technicians who are going to be scrambling. And those people, in order to continue doing the work that you love to do, or that you've just chosen to do from a career perspective in community pharmacy, they're probably going to have to move or transition. I think of ShiftRx, the online system that helps pharmacists find new work, either temporary or something that would lead to permanent. They're out of California, but we need tech platforms like that to explode as quickly as possible to help the transitions, that when national chains start closing stores because of the ripple effect of what the three biggest PBMs have done and the mismanagement of funds, too much profit, not enough into pharmacy care and infrastructure for pharmacy. Macroeconomics, this is what it does. This is what it says. Hey, on July 12th, which is a Friday, July 12th, I want to have a live This Week in Pharmacy. So that means I'm going to set up a webinar style TWIRx, This Week in Pharmacy. And I want you, listeners, I want you to come live onto the webinar style. We're going to stream it on all of the platforms, LinkedIn. Hopefully I can get Instagram to work. That's confusing. Obviously, YouTube. We are going to stream, and this is going to be talking about this exact issue of what we do in the interim, because unfortunately, everything is going to actually get worse before it gets better because of the ripple effect of what's happened really over the last 12 years, intensifying, of course, within the last 2 years. And of course, now that wave of what's happened with mismanagement and what you could surmise as and guess as greed has now affected our industry so badly that they're closing organizations, they're closing stores down. There's not enough profit as high as they went. We're going to see decreases in stock value in all of the chains, because you can't keep doing the mismanagement of funds and money and insurance and state programs and expect to keep bilking a system of billions and billions and billions of dollars without supporting your pharmacist, educating your technicians, building out tech infrastructure, assuring that independent community pharmacy is thriving. Do you know what? Yeah, this is going to sound weird, and this is economics, so not about pharmacy, but if the big chain pharmacies and the big three PBMs invested in independent community pharmacy, literally invested in them from payment structures and ease of getting paid and reimbursements that were fair, your businesses, your pharmacies, your own chain pharmacies would actually thrive more and would stay in business. But no, you were looking at the short-term goal. You were looking at the short-term strategy instead of the long game. And that's affected public health. But think about that. In order for us to get back where pharmacy needs to be to cover services and healthcare services for 350 million people coming as in 2030, about 350 million people in the United States. And what do we have? 329,000, 330,000 pharmacists. And they're spread out all over the place. And they're in areas in some places where there's no pharmacy and it's closing down. And these pharmacists are out of work. And guess what's going to happen? Pharmacists are going to go find other positions. They're going to get sucked up by hospital systems, not necessarily, maybe even in pharmacy, maybe in analytics and data and technology. They're going to become CEOs. They're going to become sales representatives. They're going to become medical science liaisons for pharma companies. And communities are going to lose access to some of the most brilliant healthcare providers that are out there. You pharmacists that are out there, you're going to lose technicians who have their heart in this business. You are going to lose all of these resources. And even when you build back, when we build back pharmacy better, right? It's going to take a while. I don't know. I'm not an analyst, data analyst, somebody like Antonio Chacha, a shout out to Antonio, 3Access Advisors, where they dig into the data. That's the kind of organization that could write a report based on the income, based on the revenue, and based on sustainability of pharmacist care, how long it's going to take to build back where pharmacy should be, and how technology and artificial intelligence is going to affect that too. All right, we have an amazing show today. I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to be in the profession. I know that it's certainly not perfect. There's good and bad in everything. And I like being a half glass full. I got my cup of coffee right here. I'm excited about our guest. We are going to welcome her to the show. I can't wait to listen to this person's passion, this pharmacist's passion for helping others in ways that isn't necessarily about pharmacy. And with that, we're going to talk with Dr. Lorneka Joseph. Hey, and on This Week in Pharmacy, we do have a special feature, but before that, I want to tell you a quick story. All right. I'm being pulled to people in the pharmacy profession that are not traditional pharmacists, and they're doing two things. Number one, they're paving the paths for other pharmacists to grow their side hustles and side businesses and side consultancies, either to enhance their lives and give them a little bit more freedom, going from maybe 45, 40 hours a week, maybe working at their local community pharmacy or their long-term care pharmacy, down to 30 hours a week, and then backfilling that income through their consultancy business. Or the other lane that's happening, that's so exciting, is consultant type, coach type pharmacists who are tapping into these people. You are listening right now. You know who you are. You want to build something. And these amazing connectors and communicators are helping other pharmacists to launch entire careers that become their primary career. And that is why today's guest, Dr. Lorneka Joseph, is so special to This Week in Pharmacy in this episode. And before I bring her in, she's in the green room right now. I want to tell you the story, which was Podfest was the very first Podfest 2024. I think this took place in January of this year, was the very first conference that I went to in my lifetime, actually, that wasn't about pharmacy. And it wasn't about healthcare. It wasn't the big HIMSS conferences about HIT or HLTH or Vive or the NCPA. It was about podcasting and professional podcasters. And the Healthcare Amplified, which put their first conference out there, had an audience of about 80 people, and there were lots of speakers. And one of the speakers was Dr. Lorneka Joseph, and she blew me away. And the reason she did, not only because she's a pharmacist, I can say, like Jerry Maguire, you had me at hello. No, she had me at PharmD. And that was her smile, her sincerity, and her fire, but also her focus. And with that, I'd like to welcome to This Week in Pharmacy, Dr. Lorneka Joseph.
Hi, Todd. Thank you so much. I'm excited. As you shared, I feel like, goodness gracious, if this was a relationship, it's courtship, because this has been from January since we connected. We started following on LinkedIn. So I'm excited about this conversation. So again, thanks for having me on TWIRx.
You're very welcome. We're excited to be here. We're doing a little twerksing on camera. But what I started out was, and your website's up on our YouTube page right now. If you're watching via YouTube, if you're listening via your favorite podcast directory, you can always go to YouTube and find us at Pharmacy Podcast Network. But what I'm showing is you have become explosive in a variety of publications. You were featured on Forbes magazine, tackling restoring mental health in Black community. There have been other publications that you've written on, that you've starred in, that you've been featured in. I met you obviously at the Podfest, but talk to me. Let's back up first and talk to me about, why did you want to become a pharmacist, and then when did that pathway start to go in the entrepreneurial direction?
Absolutely. So born and raised in the Bahamas, Todd, I always had a desire to lean towards STEM. So STEM wasn't one of those things that was kind of like, prior to COVID or whatever have you, kind of like, okay, go into this because you're going to be it's a very lucrative field. So in the Bahamas, we only really had, and still to this day, I believe, 2 tracks where students, once you reach the 9th and the 10th grade, you have to make a decision whether you want to go into business, computer, or accounting, or you want to go into STEM fields such as engineering, bio, physics, and chemistry. So of course, I chose the STEM field because I always had this desire, not only wanted to help people, but if there was a wound or someone got a cut or someone injured themselves, I was that child that was kind of like, let's get some Band-Aid and let's get some hydrogen peroxide and all of the fizzing. And that I was that child. I was that neighbor in the community. I was that young girl in the community who was like, why are you so fascinated by H2O2? Why are you so fascinated by the periodic table? Because it's just fun. And so that was me. My introduction to pharmacy really started with my mother, who she passed on. She transitioned and she passed away from multiple sclerosis. Now, I will say, Todd, that my mother, when back in I would have to say the early 2000s, back in the Bahamas, medical care was not as advanced as it is today, right? And so what we knew of MS, the only person that I knew, or whenever I heard of multiple sclerosis, for those who may not know what it is, it's a chronic disease where your muscles and your cells in the body, you begin to attack itself. Mm-hmm. And so you start to lose use of your limbs, and your cells atrophy and all of the things. And so, but we did not find out, my mother and I, it was not until her best friend had recommended for us to go to Cuba. Now, why Cuba? there are two countries that foreigners, if you're born and raised in the Caribbean, where we would go, we would either come to the US, of course, you had to have lots of money, or you would go to Cuba. And so Cuba was very inexpensive, Todd. It was like less than $200 for a plane ticket, and the care was very accessible, and they worked with foreigners. And so that's where we found out that my mother was in the last stage of multiple sclerosis. And so for me at 16, 17 years old, of course, I was devastated. I'm like, is there anything that you guys can do? And they said, yeah, we can help her, but we don't know how much longer your mother has. And so fast forward, Todd, my mother passed away right before. So I was in Cuba off and on for about 3.5 months. I started college in the Bahamas, a biochem track, because I knew I was on to be to become a pharmacist, and eventually moved to the US. But literally right before we returned, my mother passed away on Mother's Day of that year. And so, of course, I was devastated. And so that was really my motivation. I said, I'm done with this. I am tired of my loved ones being ill. We're finding out things a little bit later. And then 2 years later, my grandmother died from COPD. I didn't know that she had smoked as a little girl. And one of the reasons why I'm big on having conversations in our communities, because for most of us, we don't find out things until it actually happens. People don't find out that their loved ones smoke. They don't find out that there is a cancer history. They don't find out that this particular person, high cholesterol runs in their family until someone is either going down in the ground or someone is on their deathbed or in hospice. And now all of these questions, all of these solutions are coming up, and it's like, why didn't someone say something to me?
Yeah.
So that was me. And so that's how I got into pharmacy. My first job, I graduated at 15 years old. So my first job was working at a pharmacy. I became a senior pharmacy technician. My first employer, she paid for me to travel to Florida, became a pharmacy tech. Fast forward, after my mom passed away, my grandmother relocated, and here I am, went to Florida A&M University. Now, when did things begin to shift? Things began to shift, Todd, when I recognized that I was made for more. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that there are people, and I've run into pharmacists and, people who don't understand the difference between your career and your calling. For me, I always knew that there was so much more to me than just becoming a pharmacist and someone getting a great career, 401k, have you. I knew that I wanted to do something different. I knew I wanted to give back to my community. I also knew that I wasn't going to do it always being behind the counter. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the conversation for me of how am I going to do this? The way I'm going to do this is I love speaking. I started writing while I was in college. I think if I'm not mistaken, so the newspaper at Florida A&M University was called the FAMU, and it still is. And so what I decided, Todd, I walked over to the journalism building and I pitched myself. I pitched to the editor. I stalked him for a little bit, couple of months. And I said, hey, I just want a quick meeting with you. I know that you guys don't have a medical section, but what if you have somebody who is a student that's on campus that can help students, and they would be able to write about, what's going on in health and wellness and how students can improve themselves while they're pursuing and getting their degree. And that is how I got published, and I got my own section in the FAMU at Florida A&M University as a pharmacy student. And so I took that from there. And literally here I am. I'm like, I love speaking. I love communication, because most people, when they think of pharmacists, they think we are just pill pushers. I didn't get into pharmacy because I love taking pills. Let's just bust that myth, right? I know people are like, well, why do you work out and you do all these things? Why are you a pharmacist? Most pharmacists, we are in pharmacy because we want to bring about change. There's something that has either happened, or we want to change the way people see medicine. We want to change the way where people see pharmacists. And that is why I'm a pharmacist. I want to give back. I want to make a difference. And I want people to know that you can change your life. And a part of your medical team and a part of your community is your local pharmacist. And we have so much more to us than what we see online and what we see in retail or hospital pharmacy.
Well, the timing of this, Lorenka, is just amazing, because your build out of your own brand, your coaching, everybody's ready for this. We have 350,000 active pharmacists in the United States. And when I started in 2004, there were very few that weren't in a traditional position, specialty pharmacy, rare disease, clinical trials, hospital system, the community realm. Now, all of a sudden, especially increasing over the last 5 years, we see so many new pathways and people that are pharmacists that are doing things that are just extraordinary. You're one of those people. And that's what I want the listeners to hear that are you. I want you to encourage them, but I also want you to give them some guidance. Talk to us about what you do and how you connect with other professionals, healthcare providers, and obviously pharmacists to help them take those next steps that are necessary to build something that is a calling versus just a job.
Yes, absolutely. So, but 2015, I decided I was going to, of course, I'm like, okay, so I clearly have a business here. I clearly have a business model. People are hiring me even while I was in college and going through the PharmD program. And I'm like, here's my website. I paid somebody about $200, a scrap for it, of course, Todd, because when you're in pharmacy school, unless you're like, you got a grant or a scholarship, you're broke as a joke, right? And so I'm like, I want just something simple that people can book me. I can take something on the weekend, an event or something. And so I started Brightly Awake. And so Brightly Awake is a coaching consulting company. And so I help leaders and organizations redefine what wellness looks like and redefine what work looks like. And so I realized I started meeting more different pharmacists on social media, and they were like, well, how did you get your first clients? And where are you finding these people? And I was like, listen, I leverage what we're using right now, which is social media, Todd. And so I started off on Facebook, before, Instagram and TikTok and all those platforms came out. And I just started talking to people. And then next thing I knew, I was sharing my story. People started DMing me. And that's where Brightly Awake came from. And I literally just registered my business in the state of Florida, had a link to book a 1-hour call, and people would come and bring me their issues, whether it was wellness related, how to get started, struggling with rejection, anything along the lines of mental health and wellness. That is pretty much what Brightly Awake is all about. And so in this season of my life, as you mentioned earlier, I am a part-time pharmacist, and I enjoy doing what I do. I still love working with patients, but I'm now in the season where now God is like, you did what you did in retail. You did what you did in hospital pharmacy. Now I want to pull you from behind the counter because there's more on the inside of you. And so I speak. I also consult with medical experts and pharmacists who want to get into speaking. Now, if I can say this, Todd, when people think of speaking, they're thinking about big stages. One of the things I actually got a request. Actually, this is what we're in June right now. In April, I got a request from a previous speaking client. She had hired me because I'm also certified as an HIV/AIDS counselor. She hired me to come and speak on diabetes. Now, Todd, I will tell you, I reached out to a few pharmacists that I know are really passionate about diabetes. But you know what I got? Oh, no, I don't really do public speaking. This wasn't like an event, like a big stage. She just wanted someone to facilitate a workshop, which is what every pharmacist knows how to do because we did presentations in pharmacy school. And so now I'm like, there's so much success. There are event planners. There are organizations who are looking for pharmacists to facilitate workshops on different topics. So whether that's stress, diabetes, hypertension, I am trying to get more pharmacists to understand there is room for us way beyond the counter. Now, I am not telling everybody to, of course, quit their job, but what I am saying is there are other ways for us to facilitate and other ways for us to get into what we love, whether that's a nonprofit space, whether that's a corporate space, whether that's, I don't know, teaching health and wellness at your local church, but there is room for pharmacists to speak, to consult, and also coach clients beyond the patients that we are seeing from our employers.
Lorenka, it's the extension of being the first or sometimes second most trusted healthcare professional in our country when I see these surveys come out. Yes. And when you show up in a community as a speaker on a blood disorder or pediatric review or something that you're a specialist in, diabetes education, now it's bringing light to that issue that you're very passionate about speaking about. And I love how you said you're not asking people to leave their primary positions. If you work at a chain pharmacy, if you work at an independent community pharmacy or long-term care, we're not saying, hey, leave your job. We're saying build your voice in your community, which is a part of education. Number one reason a pharmacist is even in the healthcare ecosystem is safety. And with safety comes communication. And with communication comes presentation. And with that comes Lorenka telling you how to get it done. And how to
absolutely. Yes. And that's exactly what I'm telling people, Todd. Like, I'm not like, hey, go ahead, quit, especially if you have a family or not. Like, that would be heinous of me to say that, especially in this economy. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, especially if you've experienced burnout. So prior to COVID, the Lord had began to speak to me, of what this was going to look like. And so literally things like, when we talked about it when, at the Health Summit Amplified, I talked about how just using something simple as a LinkedIn or an Instagram or YouTube, right? You don't need $5,000 to get started. Just start using your voice, whether it's writing, whether it's, putting out a poll in your stories and asking people, do you have questions about pharmacy? Do you have questions about allergies? And that's really how it pretty much grew. I wasn't looking for my platform to grow on social media, but people, the know, like, and trust factor, it was just there. Right. And so that's how it happened. That's how Forbes happened. A friend of mine's, she created my website, and then she was, friends with this editor, and she had a question in her stories, and I responded. And that is how I got into Forbes. Like, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe I was the first pharmacist that she had ever featured in Forbes magazine. And so she features women in entrepreneurship, women who are carving out their careers in a different way. So she mostly features women for Forbes magazine, and she's still one of the main editors today. And so, but if I didn't pitch, if I didn't respond, if I didn't say, hey, I'm a pharmacist, I have a communication background, I think I can help you, that wouldn't have landed me into Forbes. And so I'm just trying to get everyone to understand with the PharmD, or maybe you're a physician or a nurse. I just had a consult with a nurse. She works at a particular hospital here in Central Florida, and she's looking to retire, but she wants to know what can she do with her degree. And so her husband connected us together. So now I'm putting her on a path, and we're going to be working together one-on-one through my VIP day, which is a half a day where I sit down and work with you to figure out what are your next steps, the tools that you need. If you want to facilitate workshops, if you want to get into the event space where people can hire you for virtual or in person, I can help you carve that out, because I've been doing this for 15 years and I know what event planners are looking for. And so whether that's in pharmacy, whether that's in a nonprofit space, whether that's even reaching out to your retailer for them to become a client or help you to have a traditional, non-traditional role, you can also do that as well. Because fortunately for me, Todd, if I can say, my employer actually became my client. Last year, I was hired to speak at a lunch and learn for 30 minutes on Health and Wellness Month. And so, but again, if people didn't know that I spoke or I'm a speaker as a pharmacist, I probably wouldn't have gotten that opportunity.
That's awesome. All right. So you're listening. If you're not watching on YouTube and you want to connect with Dr. Lorneka Joseph, it's drlorenka.co. That's once again, drlorenka.co. And I know you're a LinkedIn user. You and I connected on LinkedIn since the PodFest. And I've enjoyed watching and reading and learning about what you're doing for other professionals and healthcare professionals, and of course, pharmacists. But is there any other place that you enjoy connecting with people other than LinkedIn or your website?
Definitely Instagram and YouTube as well. I'm growing on there, of course, connecting with you and recognizing the real estate of YouTube. So I'm actually on there as well. So it's at Dr. Lorneka. So it the same social media handle across all platforms. And that's a business tip for everyone as well. That's free. If you want people to find you easily, make sure that your name is the same on every platform.
Right.
So I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, same social media handle that makes it very easy for you to connect with me. And I do answer my DMs. Of course, yes, I do have a team, but please do not be afraid if you don't want to leave a comment. Feel free to slide in my stories, but let's connect. I want to see more people grow and also employers as well. I'm actually getting ready. I'm heading to, so I work with Head Start and different organizations, as you know, Todd. And I actually just confirmed and, sealed the deal with a Head Start in another state. And so they're flying me in North Carolina in October. So I'm going to be having a workshop, facilitating a workshop for 100 men in the Carolinas in October. So again, the opportunities are endless, but I am on a mission to bring more pharmacists along. I want to bring more organizations, and I also want to change the way employers engage their employees. So let's change that. It's not just another event. When I create workshops and facilitate them, I'm bringing the energy, I'm bringing the love, and I'm also bringing the expertise, which is 14, 15 years of what you hear.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for being on This Week in Pharmacy. Thanks for being so open. We want you to return because I'd like to start having multiple people come on This Week in Pharmacy and talk about issues, maybe burnout, maybe getting to the next level in your career. I gotta have you back.
Thank you so much, Todd. I had a great time, and I'm looking forward to hopefully when we do have this, I can say, hey, Todd, we signed up 10 more pharmacists that are ready to go into the speaking, media, and communication space when it comes to pharmacy expertise. So thank you so much for having me. I look forward to connecting with all of our viewers.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners, for listening to This Week in Pharmacy, this segment with Dr. Lorenka Joseph.
Bye, everyone.
I enjoy listening and learning from pharmacists that are doing untraditional career paths or something that's a side hustle that you're passionate about. We have a network of organizations that have writing opportunities, speaker opportunities. So Pharmacy Podcast Network, that's part of what we'd like to do. We'd like to grow this so that you pharmacists have an opportunity to extend your knowledge. And think about this. If you're in community pharmacy and you can learn to speak to a school district about going back to school, what concerns do parents have in setting up an education opportunity as a pharmacist from a hospital system, from a community pharmacy, brought to you by your local independent community pharmacy, whatever it is. But remember that there's more that you can be doing. I don't care if you work for Walgreens or CVS or Rite Aid or a long-term care pharmacy, doesn't matter. You're a pharmacist and you have knowledge about different things that can impact public's health, knowledge and understanding and safety. Use that, become part of your community and watch your opportunities grow. And if you, for example, are unhappy in your position or you're scared about layoffs, you have to start networking within your communities. And this is one way to do it, is to reach out to Dr. Joseph, Dr. Lorenka Joseph on LinkedIn, connect with her and see what she has and can share with you. We are so excited that we're going to have an opportunity to meet up with pharmacists in New Orleans at the Idea Share. Once again, if you're going to be there, please connect with us at booth 903. Hey, tell us what we're missing on TWIRx and This Week in Pharmacy. Are we covering things that we are missing? I did want to also just close and talk about the opaque industry secretly inflating prices for prescription drugs. This is a study and a story by the New York Times that just came out today. And once again, the title is The Middlemen, the opaque industry secretly inflating prices for prescription drugs. Pharmacy benefit managers are driving up drug costs for millions of people, employers, and government. And like I said at the very beginning of the show, there's a ripple effect. It's coming, but we have to work together, RX, to support each other. We are here. This network is here for you, to support you. If there's things that you'd like to discuss, or if you want connections through our LinkedIn network, through our hosts' LinkedIn network, that you'd like to meet up with people inside and outside of the industry, please let us know. I hope you have a great week. We cannot wait to talk with you again. Please subscribe to our podcast throughout the entire network. Let us know what we're missing. Let us know if you'd like to participate. And I thank you so much for everything you do in pharmacy care as a pharmacist and a technician. And I hope you have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next time on This Week in Pharmacy.